but he is very sort of. I
Anal.
remember.
He's very anal about everything.
Yeah, I used to be like that when I was younger.
Wait,
like in the sense
are we
that
streaming now? Can you check?
are we? I don't know. It doesn't look like it yet. But I used to be when I was younger. I had to, if we had to get somewhere on time, I had to make sure I got there like at the exact right time.
Oh, so you weren't a true Pakistani then. You have to be.
Guys, oh my God! Everything, all the stuff that we're talking about,
guys,
Armin.
We're streaming. We're streaming.
We were live streaming.
Let me check the audio.
You guys heard? They heard everything about you
know
being anal, Armin.
If the audio is good, because I think I'm having some technical issues.
Okay, whoever's there, let us know if the audio is good.
Yeah. Can you hear everybody? Can you hear? Shit. Hold on. Can you, anybody in the live chat, can you let us know if you can hear everybody? Can you hear me? Can you, oh, here, I know what to do. I'll just share this link to myself.
You guys all sound great. I can hear, I just unmuted the thing, so it sounds fine.
Oh, wait, you hear everybody?
Yeah, I heard everybody.
Okay, good.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's good. Just go for it.
Start then.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. My name is Ali Rizvi, and with me is the somewhat frazzled right now Armin Navabi, because he wanted to make sure we got everything on time. He's our technical guru here. So, and we did get everything on time, so you're going to see him relaxing. Are you relaxing, Armin?
No, because I want to make sure the audio is okay. But yeah, I'll be fine. Thank you.
You'll be fine. Armin will be okay. Armin's always okay. Armin, as you know, is the founder of Atheist Republic, the 1.9 million strong largest platform for atheists online worldwide.
2.1.
You're 2.1 million?
Yes.
Shit, I've been underselling Armin. Okay, wow. 2.1 million strong Atheist Republic, the largest online platform for atheists in the world, and especially for a lot of ex-Muslims. That's one of their first introductions to it. They joined that platform. And so Armin and I today are joined by a guest from Down Under. Many of you actually know him as one of the sort of rising rock stars of the ex-Muslim movement, and I'm going to be embarrassing him right now. But we're all brown-skinned, so we can't really turn red visibly. But in any case, we have with us Harris Sultan from Australia. Harris, welcome to the program. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I've been meaning to talk to you for a long time. I just got I'm one of the fortunate people who ended up getting a preview copy of his book, his upcoming book called The Curse of God, and it is fantastic, and it's going to be coming out, so we're going to be talking about that as well, and you know, we're telling people about your book and why you wrote it, and we're going to be getting into your story. But I wanted to start with an interview you did of a young man in Pakistan, right? And his name, you haven't given out his real name, but you have named him Spartacus for his bravery. And there's a pretty compelling video you made online about what he's going through. So, because this is obviously, you know, one of the things we talk about a lot on this podcast is ex-Muslims who are being persecuted in Muslim majority countries, and this is just a classic textbook example of that, unfortunately. So, let's start with that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I named him Spartacus, obviously, for his bravery and courage and his desire not to, his conviction not to give up. So he reached out to me, he told me a story, and I get a lot of these stories, not to that extent, not to that extreme. Most of the calls for help I get from people are basically just telling their ideas, telling their stories, their frustration and not being able to come out openly as an atheist or even be able to talk about any of the views or any of the criticisms that they might have in their heads. But those are the most of the stories that I get. But when I got the story of Spartacus, it was so shocking that I first refused to believe it. And then I spoke to him at length for over an hour on WhatsApp. I still had to make sure everything's genuine and it's real, and to the best of my ability, whatever I could do to confirm his story. What I could tell, he kept breaking down because of his experience. You could tell that this guy, relatively young man from a rather impoverished society, he's from a village, so he's not really from an upper middle class kind of family where a lot of the atheists who actually do reach out to me. So it was very heartwarming and touching. And then I don't know what to do. And again, this was very different from the others, where the others are okay. I tell them, okay, just focus on your studies. And then, first advice I give to all the people is to become financially independent and then try to get overseas. And once you have stood up on your feet, then you can probably go anywhere. And then, then your parents need you more than you need your parents or family. So that's the kind of advice that I give. But I couldn't give this advice to this guy because he had been on the run for the last 7 years.
Why has he been on the run?
So he basically, he's only done year 10, which is called metric in Pakistan, which is only 10 years of schooling. So he's not highly educated academically, but he said that he always wanted to, and he spoke very good English too. So he wanted to learn English, and he's read a lot of books, and so anyway, his mind was going with the similar transition that most of our minds went through, where we see certain problems in Islam and the philosophy of Islam and the science of Islam and morality of Islam, etc. So he had those questions, and he used to debate with one of his friends, and that friend ratted him out to the local imam, and they all went to the local imam. Let's see if he can answer his questions. And then apparently he couldn't, and one of the comments that he made for Aisha's marriage, Aisha's age, kind of pissed off the imam a little bit, and they just left there, just yelling at each other, etc. So his imam later on went to his family and told them that your son is a blasphemer and he's an apostate and all that. So his family was upset with him as well. So I think a couple of days later, he was just going home on a bicycle through some green fields of Pakistan, a village in Pakistan, and then he was stopped by I think 4 or 5 masked men, and they took him off the bike. They took him to an abandoned house. They beat him up. They tortured him. They cut off his finger. They put cigarette burns on his body. They tried to put Toba, meaning repent, with cigarette burns on his wrist, I think. So I've seen the photos. The scars have faded away a little bit because they are about 7 years old, but you can see the scars. And then they also obviously they abuse him sexually as well. So
wait, why obviously?
Well, obviously in his case, because in the Pakistani culture, obviously, and I said that it's got nothing to do with Islam. I mean, yeah, you can torture them, but you don't have to sexually abuse anyone. But in Pakistani culture, it is a kind of a culture that, like the honor culture, that okay, I'm gonna make sure, I'm gonna grind you, I'm gonna wipe the floor with you. So just to demean him, just to break his spirit, and just to humiliate him even more, they did that. So that was.
Wait, yeah, sorry, I can't get over this. When you say obviously, you're suggesting that this is so that common, that is obvious, that when you say obviously they would do that? More
so it's obvious with women, not really so with men.
No, I think that the answer to what Armin's saying is yes. Like, this is something that in a few years ago on Facebook, when people could post anything, some of these guys, even the politicians, they used to post videos of them, if not actually, raping these men, you know, that they caught that they wanted to torture, whether it's political opponents or blasphemers, but you know, they would use broomsticks and things like that to sodomize them. I mean, it's horrendous, and they put up videos and they had to get them removed. It was this is actually unfortunately a very common thing. It's bizarre when it's done.
The mentality is for the victim that this, like the physical torture is something that is a harm to them at the time, but the sexual abuse is a scar that they will take with them for the rest of their life. Yeah.
And he said something to that effect in the video as well. I think when the video that you posted, Harris, is that he said that they didn't break me, but they broke my spirit, or I'm paraphrasing. He said something like that, and that is a goal.
That's how he saw it as well, and I totally understand where he was coming from, because that is the mentality. Usually, Ali, I wasn't aware of what you just mentioned about a lot of videos being people being molested in that manner just to break them, but it's perfectly understandable because it happens a lot with women, but I just wasn't aware that they would do that to men as well. But it makes perfect sense that the idea is to humiliate them, to just degrade them as much as they can, and just to break them. And that's what he said in the video as well, that the memory of him being physically tortured, he kind of got over that. But this kind of abuse is something that has just basically, just damaged him permanently, and he just cannot recover from it. But to make matters worse was the fact that his own mother was also, he found that out later on from his sister, that their parents knew that he's going to get kidnapped. Again, that's another cultural thing. When Pakistan, they say, just beat him up a little bit, just knock some sense into him.
Are you fucking kidding me? Holy shit.
I would say
the family were in on the kidnapping.
Yeah, they were in on the kidnapping, but they probably weren't in on the sexual abuse part. But they were in on the kidnapping, and he was, and then his own mother got the imam to issue a fatwa that whoever kills my son, beheads my son, he'll go to heaven unanswered, unquestioned.
What? Okay. Wait, can you repeat that part? I can't.
Yes.
Can't.
So his mother had gotten. She had colluded with the imam to issue a fatwa on that whoever kills my son will go to heaven.
I thought you were about to say that the mom got their mom to issue a fatwa on whoever raped their son, but no, on their own son.
Yeah, under their own sons. So yeah, I mean, again, as I said, like mom probably either didn't know or didn't care about him being molested in that way.
I mean,
I think they were more.
I mean, it's a mom that she wants her son killed, so probably she doesn't give a shit about him being molested as well.
Well, because that would be still viewed badly on the family,
right?
Yeah.
So molesting your son is bad to you, not because your son is being tortured or being abused, but because this brings shame to the family. So torture my son physically, but don't bring shame to the family. Kill my son if you have to, or actually no, not if you have to. Please do it, but don't sexually abuse my son because that would bring shame to the family. Okay, what the fuck? Did you verify all of this? Apparently, you seem like you have done a lot of research.
He said he's seen the photos and he's seen the scars on his wrists. And
did you see if you could verify the fatwa?
No, I can't verify the fatwa because it is a tiny village. The imam probably has never used a phone, internet or anything like that. So it's I've seen the photos of where he's living. I can tell from his accent he's Punjabi, and I've seen that he's been in Karachi as well, which is a long way away. So I obviously can't verify every little bit of detail, but the amount of information that has been given to me so far that has checked out or what makes sense to me, then I don't have any reason to doubt in his story.
Wow, that's incredible. So, this is, it is unfortunate. The honor culture, the way that it works is that even if forget. I mean, in this case, a mother thinks that the son is guilty, obviously, of something that like a crime that is a capital crime in her view. But in a lot of cases, there are even young girls who are raped, girls as young as 11 or 12. If they're raped or anything, then the family will often just kill her themselves, even though they know it's not her fault, just because it'll bring shame to the family. I mean, it's actually it's pretty. It's insane.
So just for the skeptic out there, okay, I just want to make sure that, like, when people are looking into the story, because we do want to help this person, right? But what if somebody says, okay, but how do I know this is not just somebody making up a story? Again, just for the skeptics out there trying to make up a story just so that they could get financial aid. Like, how would we go ahead and verify stories like this?
Well, financial aid, which is something I made very clear to Spartacus, that he's not going to get all the money that we raised in a form of cash. For example, if we're going to fly him out, I'm going to buy the ticket with my own credit card. If he's going to stay somewhere in whichever country he might go to, I'm going to look at the accommodation myself. And then obviously, we're going to have receipts and everything just to make sure that everything stands up, because I'm obviously putting out my name out.
Right.
So I want to make sure that everything is legitimate and genuine, and it's not just something that's just a money-making exercise for someone. Because obviously, I mean, as far as I'm concerned as well, I mean, I've only spoken to him on the phone, and I've done a few video chats. I've seen the copy of his passport. But that's it. I mean, I can't go to Pakistan either. So
So what if it's not for money, but for somebody just wants to leave Pakistan and they're coming up with a story like this? Again,
yes.
This is this would seem very
Dramatic,
cruel to ask if the story, if given that the story is true. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're not, Yeah, but do you think it's cruel to ask this question?
No. Before we go, to add on to what Armin's saying, Harris, like in our situation, we have been in situations where whenever we try to help people, one of the first questions that comes up when it comes to Pakistan is, how do you know that their story is true? We had Robin Blumner on this the program, and she was talking about the secular rescue program that they have for the Center for Inquiry, where they also do the same kind of thing. And they're actually quite. All of their methods are very confidential, but they also run into the same issue. So the only reason we're asking is not because we
I understand.
But this is just we want to make sure that the people who are listening, they have a reasonable level of confidence in this, because this is just one of the things that comes up, unfortunately.
Oh no, absolutely. I want these questions to be asked just so people can develop the confidence, and more and more sincere people get the attention and help that they deserve. If he's just trying to get out of Pakistan, it seems like a very difficult exercise, or a very fruitless one for that matter, because there's so many other ways of going to Europe, or if you get just a little bit of help, taking on the monster that Islam has become while you're living in Pakistan. It just doesn't seem like it's worth it. I mean, you and I, we both know that anyone who's a Muslim, no matter how desperate he's willing to go to a foreign country, he's not going to say Muhammad was a pedophile or just abused the shit out of Muhammad and curse God. He's not going to do that.
Because they probably won't live long enough to make it out. I mean, we had the last episode.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah.
Like we had Sultan, we had Shan Taseer, who was the son of Salman Taseer, and Salman Taseer was the governor, a hugely powerful man, the governor of the largest province of Pakistan, and even he was killed, and he wasn't even an apostate or anything. He just stood for somebody who he felt was falsely convicted of blasphemy.
We had people in Pakistan getting accused of blasphemy, for just liking a post on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
So this would be a very extremely, like, the risk versus reward for what this person is doing. Yeah, okay. So that, I mean, I think when you don't have evidence, the only thing you could use is Occam's razor, right? And Occam's razor kind of implies that this guy would be insane if this is his method to do. But do you think what he did, would you say that what he did is wrong given the consequence? Like, even if the story, let's say the story is true, but would you recommend somebody, like, I mean, obviously you wouldn't, but would you say that him speaking against Muhammad like that to an imam in Pakistan, was that a bad decision on his part? Again, this sounds like blaming the victim again.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It's a fairly justified question, because a lot of people, I don't think I would actually. I don't know how I would have done if I was there, but I guess I would have been a coward if I hadn't acted the way he did, and hence he deserves to be called Spartacus, and I deserve to be called, I don't know, whoever stood against Spartacus, maybe.
Well, I mean, just because you're not speaking out, that doesn't mean you're standing against Spartacus. You just, like, I mean, I wouldn't. I mean,
no. I'm not saying you're standing against Spartacus. I'm saying you're not being Spartacus. He could have just kept his mouth shut. And just like so many messages, ever since I've started doing this, I probably have had over 100 messages or maybe more, where people just say, well, we're just quiet, we don't talk about it, we don't say anything, we just, it's so suffocating. But they're suffering in silence. So he could have had that way as well. And now it's not only him. I think, Ali, you might be aware of Ayaz's army and his whole gang and the Pansa.
My wife is very good friends with all of them, the whole crowd.
So he actually found himself later in that, but not at that time when this thing happened to him. When he went on a run, that's when he got in touch with those guys. So he could have had the easy way as well. But hey, look, we're always going to have Spartacuses in our midst, where people would say, "Screw you! I'm going to stand up against you. I'm gonna risk whatever I have to." So
this happened. You said 7 years ago.
2011 it happened, yeah.
So how did, first of all, two questions. What is his situation right now, and how did he manage to survive for the past 7 years there?
So he went to Karachi, he ran to Karachi, he got some initial help from a friend who he didn't tell what the situation was, but he still lent him some money. I think something close to like 40,000 rupees or something. So he bought a ticket to Karachi because he wanted to put as much distance between him and the perpetrators as possible. Karachi is further down south and has had the reputation of somewhat secular city, even though I don't think it is. And just to somehow assume a new identity. So he went away and he did a job in some call center there because he's had a good English. So he did that for a while, and he did that until 2017. So he lived there for 6 years. In the meantime, he had started, I think in 2015 or something, he had started finding friends like Pansa. I think that's how he got to know the gang, and then he started making posts and Facebook pages, and I think it's a human behavior that if you believe in something, you want to talk about it, you want to spread the idea, and I think it's everyone's eternal right, at least in a civilized society. But when more you are suppressed, more your speech is suppressed, more it's going to come out louder and louder, and that's what happened with him. He found himself in the company of some notorious blasphemers in Pakistan, and when there was a crackdown and at the end of 2016 and 2017, which actually had a sound impact on me indirectly, which I'll come to that later. So when Pansa was arrested, they found his name and number on his phone, on Pansa's phone, and that's how the investigating officer called all the blasphemers, and he called Spartacus as well, and he said, "We're going to get you, so go and run and hide."
Who said they're going to find you?
I don't know if it was FIA or the normal police.
So now, actually,
yeah,
okay, so it turned into
in Pakistan. There was a crackdown on basically some of these online atheists, and I remember this time because they were actually using my profile to also get to people who I was connected to. So I had to make sure that I they were basically going through social media profiles and seeing who was friends with whom and who was commenting on whose stuff, and it was actually pretty intricate. They were trying to crack down on atheists and blasphemers, apostates, whatever, in Pakistan. So that was a pretty fraught time, and this is sort of overlapped with the time that the hang Ayaz Nizami was one of these guys who was part of this group, and this hashtag hang Ayaz Nizami became one of the top trending hashtags in Pakistan, where essentially millions of people were out. They just wanted this guy hanged.
Okay, so
yeah.
it's usually mostly people that go after blasphemers, unless the police is pushed into a position where they have to respond to the people, right? But in this specific period of time, you're saying there were some people in the police system that made it their job to go after atheists.
No, there was pressure built up on that. Government is mainly incompetent and corrupt in most cases in Pakistan, and that was Nawaz Sharif's government, the previous government, and the interior. All of these issues would have fallen under Interior Minister Chaudhry Nisar at the time, and there were a lot of pages like your pages. There's Atheist Republic, Lahore Consulate, there's Atheist Republic, Karachi Consulate. I don't know if they're directly endorsed by you or not, but they use your logos. And they've been building up steadily very good following by Pakistani people, and so there was an uproar. There was an uproar on that. With I think Bhansar did most of that, where he was just going way over the top.
Who's this Bhansar? You guys keep mentioning.
Yeah, Bhansar.
Oh yeah, we should explain that to the audience too. Go ahead.
Okay, so Bhansar is a legendary blasphemer in Pakistani circles, and I'll tell you a very funny story about him too. At the end.
First, give us a quick history.
He was just making, and he would take a piss out of everything. Really, like if he would use the language that is just. That just you and I are talking, but he would throw in all the prophets' names as well, and he had a really funny way of explaining. For example, he once said, one of the posts said, just a little girl and saying, "Hey, come sit on my dick," and that's Muhammad talking to Aisha. So he would basically word it like that and blow it even more just to piss people off.
Okay.
He lives in Pakistan. Yeah, that's the difference.
And he got arrested.
Oh yeah, eventually got caught, but he did everything where he had anonymous profiles and.
So what happened to him when he got arrested?
So he got arrested, and then they found out his name, but apparently he was from a very well-off family. So that is another funny thing, that you can still get out of Pakistan without making a noise, even though Bhansar was actually featured on the TV. Ali, you would know this guy, Amir Liaquat. He did a whole. That clown did a whole show on him.
The biggest douchebag, yeah.
Can we? Okay, so he nothing happened to him because he was well off.
He went to England. They let him go to. So he's in England now.
Wait. Okay, this makes no sense. Asia Bibi, she said, "What did Muhammad do for humanity?" And she's been in jail for 8 years, and all these Islamists now in the streets are fucking losing their mind because
she's poor.
Wait, yeah,
she's poor and Christian.
No, but wouldn't these Islamists not give a shit? I mean, the Islamists don't give a shit about poor, who's rich. Why didn't they come out in the streets saying?
Because they managed to do it very quietly. It didn't come in the newspapers and everything. So
okay, but
it didn't make news.
Oh no, let me explain this in a personal way. So Armin, basically the Islamists, they would have come out. They don't care. They would want this guy's head as well, right? But the thing is that this guy's family is so well connected. And when you're well connected, you usually know people in the government and everything who can get you out of the country quietly. and once you're out of the country, they can't do anything, so they just give up. That's basically how it happens. This is one of the reasons that, for instance, where in my case, right, if I go to Pakistan, if I want to go there for about a week, I can relatively do it probably undetected. I'm not going to risk it, but I can because like the kind of the contacts that I have are more well connected. But someone like Alishba, for instance, can't go because she has a whole different circle.
Right. By the way, my brother listens to this podcast now, and he tells me that I interrupt way too often. I said, yeah, I know, I'm working on it. But sorry, I'll try not to interrupt. But okay, but what happened? So they got this guy, but they got his phone. So even though they didn't arrest him,
they did arrest him. They did arrest him.
Okay, but even though they didn't end up doing anything against him after that, his phone. You're saying that because they got his phone, a whole bunch of other people got into trouble because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of there was a massive crackdown. Some say that even Ayaz Nizami was caught because of that information that came out of him. But apparently he didn't give the information, so he didn't volunteer any information. But who knows how much information he gave them? So
we should have him on the podcast.
Yeah, look, I mean, well, Spartacus is still in touch with him, so I think he has been. I don't know why. Ever since I think it's been over a year since he left for England, so he's been in England for a while. So I don't know why he hasn't made any. He hasn't made his presence known. So I don't know. Who knows what his story is at the moment? But anyway, so that's how Spartacus.
I can get in touch with him. We follow each other on Twitter and stuff. So.
Oh, right. Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, well, you should, because he's very interesting character.
I didn't even think of that. He'd be amazing to have on if he's willing to do it. I don't know if he can, but anyway. So yeah, let's move on and get back to
So
Spartacus's story. One thing I gotta say before you go on, Harris, is that when you hear the tape or the recording tape, I'm an old man, but when you hear the recording of it, the way that he's speaking and the way that he broke down when he talked about how they caught him and sexually abused him for 6 hours, that I mean, I believe him very easily. I mean, to me, it just seems like the whole interview, the way that he spoke about it. I mean, if he's lying, he deserves an Oscar. But it seems the most simple explanation is that he's telling the truth, because I heard it too.
And there's another thing that I want to add, because when I spoke to him before the interview on WhatsApp, he told me that he probably doesn't want to tell the sexual abuse part in the interview. I said it's entirely up to you if you don't want, if you're uncomfortable about it, etc. But more you tell your story, more people it's going to reach out to. And then at that point in my interview, I was under the assumption that he's not going to talk about it, but then he actually still volunteered at that point.
Yeah, and he started crying. He broke down. He said for 6.
I actually cut that. Yeah, I actually cut that part down because if you listen to that part of the interview, that actually went a little bit longer than that. But then he composed himself well as well. I mean, he's very smart. I mean, for someone who's only had 10 years of schooling, it's quite well read and educated.
Well, he mentioned that they sexually abused him for how many hours?
Well, he said 6 hours. Yeah. But he said it could be 5, it could be 4.
Okay, so that was 7 years ago. So the new part of his story is that the police now was hunting him down because of his social media activity. Is that right?
Yes. So 2016 that happened, so luckily the phone was under a fake ID or something. So he threw away the phone. He left Karachi. He went to the southern Punjab, Ali, if you know. And now that part, I still can't get my head around it. He went there and he found an abandoned shack where farmers in the off season are not there. So he lived there for like 2 weeks or something. He hunted sparrows and he ate them with a slingshot. So and he said he didn't look at anyone. He didn't speak to anyone. There were no humans around for good 14 days or something. And he would drink from just a pond or something, and just a stream or something. So, so he lived like that, and then he went to some other city, and where he is at the moment, I think he's doing some sort of a little job. But that was a time when the Azaz army was being arrested, so he actually sat out the storm, so to speak. And yeah.
That's so. How can we? So you've set up a place where people can donate. How do they find out where they can donate to help?
Yeah, so I tried to set up GoFundMe. I've been waiting for them to approve it for the last 10 days, and I don't know what takes so long, and they're still asking me questions. I just keep responding with the same answer. So I think GoFundMe will be set up hopefully in the next couple of days or so. In the meantime, because I didn't want to waste this opportunity, so I'm speaking with you, and I already have something set up so people can donate. So that's so they can donate through PayPal or through my Patreon. The first payment would go directly to Spartacus, and PayPal, every money that you put in towards via PayPal, it goes straight to Spartacus's cause. Since yesterday, we've raised close to $700. We need at least $1,500. And to start the first process, which is buy him a plane ticket, send him to the country which we are thinking about, and then he can go to UNHCR and apply for asylum there.
Right. And do you have a URL for the Patreon account? So can you say it just for? We're gonna put all the other links in the description here.
Yeah. So it's obviously, it's patreon.com/xmuslim. Or you can just search for Harris Sultan in there, and
X-Muslim as in the letter X, or
EXMUSLIM.
Okay.
So we've raised a good amount of money. I've had, thanks Ali for sharing the tweet, and Ex-Muslim TV, thanks to him as well. He shared the tweet as well. A lot of people shared on Facebook. So
there's a tweet. I'll tweet that on Atheist Republic right now.
Yeah. I'll send it to you, Armin. Go ahead.
Yeah. So far it's pretty promising. But again, I had never done that. Now to finish Spartacus' story, so that happened, and now he's in a city doing a job, keeping a very low profile, and not saying anything about Islam, but he still has a bug where he wants to talk about it, and he still follows my page and comments there, and under an anonymous profile, like many other ex-Muslim and atheists in Pakistan. So he reached out to me and told me the story, and I didn't know what to do, and then I decided to speak to him. And after the interview as well, a lot of people sent me messages that they want to be able to help him out. This is just horrible. And so for a good month, I decided not to do anything. I just tried to sit it out, and I didn't know whether it's going to work or not. I can only confirm so much of his story. I don't know how legit it is, whether, people are going to trust me or not, or what am I getting myself into? If people start, it could put my integrity into question. So all these things were playing in my mind, and I was thinking not to do anything about it. And he actually, I don't want to name all the charities. He actually reached out to a lot of big organizations who are very famous in helping out these kind of people, and he showed me their emails that it was basically, sorry, we can't do anything. I think Richard Dawkins Foundation was the only one that actually responded back and forth, but they also said that you have to be a blogger in order for us to be able to do anything.
You mean for the secular rescue program?
Look, there are a lot of them, so he went through all of them. And
it is over here. The thing is, and just to explain this, to be fair to the Richard Dawkins Foundation Center for Inquiry and all these, there are certain legal requirements for asylum as well. So
I understand.
For certain countries to be able to provide asylum, it's a complicated process. Obviously, a lot of people want to come here, so there are certain conditions I have to fulfill, and unfortunately, a lot of times they're not totally fair. I mean, even Asia Bibi, such a world-renowned case. there have been a lot of there are some issues in terms of like the countries that are willing to offer asylum for all kinds of complex reasons. It's very unfortunate and it's infuriating sometimes, but
no, I wasn't doubting their intentions, and
I know that.
You've obviously read my book, so you know how much of a Richard Dawkins I am.
So let me like the only time I tried something similar to what you've done, and after that I decided to give up and just try to promote other organizations that do this, was with Rana Ahmed, the Saudi girl that we brought out of Saudi Arabia, and I just realized how difficult this whole process of trying to bring someone else, and I'm just promoting organizations that are doing this. One thing I learned helping Rana get out of Saudi Arabia was, first of all, anything you spend, take a picture of the receipt, and don't post it publicly because it might help people find the person, but share it with a trusted organization. For example, what I did was I took pictures of all the, like I made a GoFundMe account for Rana. I promoted that. I took all the money and I spent it on helping her. But I took a picture of the receipt and I shared it with ex-Muslims of North America, so that ex-Muslims of North America could publicly say that yes, all this money has went to Rana, right, or has been spent on for Rana. So that's one thing we did. Another thing I did was when I interviewed Rana, I wanted to make sure that I'm not doing anything wrong, and I got other people to come interview her as well. I got, again, ex-Muslim of North America. Imtiaz Shams helped me because they had a lot more experience interviewing people. So I got them to come speak to her on Skype and tell me that, yes, this is a go. Those are some of the stuff that I did. One thing I did that I think was a mistake was all the money that I sent to Rana was through Western Union. And the fees on that, man, like a lot of the money didn't reach her because of the fees. I should have. There must be a better way, like, to send money to people in need. I don't know what but.
Oh yeah, it's much better now. There's so many transaction sources that you can actually send it now. I think there's UAE exchange or something. Funny, UAE would, if they knew what I'm sending the money for.
I just want to mention Rana Ahmed is actually one of our most listened to episodes. She was a guest on our show.
I'll listen to that one too.
It's a third episode that we did. It's episode number 3 of Secular Jihadists. So if you want to hear her story, it's incredible. So
she's made quite a name for herself as well. She's, in her own right.
She's a really smart girl. Very smart.
Can't wait to see her one day.
Yeah. So I just want to. So we've got the. Is there anything I wanted to actually move on and talk about you and your book and so on? So if there's anything else you want to say, Spartacus case.
Yes. Yeah. So with Spartacus, that's where we are at the moment. It's only been, I think, 24 hours. So we've raised about 700, and we need, as I said, at least another 800. So we can just buy a ticket, get some accommodation, and then he can go to UNHCR. And then obviously while his application is being processed, that time could go anywhere from 1 to 5 years being the worst case scenario. So that's the time when he's going to need money. But obviously it's going to be a third world country, so it's not going to be very expensive. So I think you can live there for probably, I don't know, $150, maybe $200 a month. So it's not out of reach, but it's still some money that we might need. So at this point, I'm hopeful that we've gone almost halfway, and we need another halfway, and with a little bit of push, we can raise that money, and hopefully we can save Spartacus.
And another point is, like, how Asia, is that how you say it? Asia Bibi, when she was in trouble. She's a Christian, and a lot of Christians got together and raised money for her, and that's a good thing, right? I mean, that's one thing that you can't, there's communities of people that support each other, and we don't have that much within the atheist community, and we need that. And this is now a fellow atheist in need. And unlike when there's a lot of Muslims taking care of each other, there's a lot of Christians taking care of each other. And there's not that they shouldn't. I just think that we need to catch up a little bit. That there's not that many people that care about atheists. When atheists are being oppressed or being discriminated against or being wronged, there seems to be much less support for them than any other group out there. Not that those other groups, those getting a lot of support. Those other groups need even more support, right? Like Christians being discriminated against or oppressed in Egypt. Yes, Christians are supporting them, but there should be getting even more support. I'm not saying that they're getting too much support. Like obviously it's not enough, but what I'm saying is that we atheists seem to be at the bottom of the list when it comes to organizations. I mean, we do have some people, like we have the Secular Rescue, we have the International Humanist and Ethical Union. I forgot the name.
Yeah. International Humanist and Ethical Union.
Yeah. Do you have the organizations like
IAGU?
Yeah. We have so many good organizations doing these things, but we are like it's a fraction of the support of other groups. Atheists seem to be when there's news about atheists being oppressed or wronged, it just seems to only circulate within atheist circles. Unlike other people, when it becomes headline news, when Jews, Christians, Muslims are being oppressed, it becomes headline news often. It's just atheists sharing it. So we need to step up and take care of each other. And if you want to support, and here's your chance to help a fellow atheist in need.
Yeah, and we should. I should again just really want to refer people to the episodes that we've done with Robin Blumner, and that's about Secular Rescue, the program by Center for Inquiry, and also with Andrew Seidel, who's an attorney for the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Yes.
They also have a program that helps persecuted atheists, right, in oppressive countries like Pakistan, and it has a program that can help them get out of there. So and often they work together as well. So there's a lot of there are more facilities for this than there were as little as maybe 4 or 5 years ago. When I remember, I used to get so many. I'm sure you guys do all these emails from people in Pakistan and Egypt and all these other places where they just want to get out of the country, and you don't know what to say to them. I had no idea what to tell them, and now, fortunately, some of these things are coming up where atheists are protecting their own, and I think it's a great development, and hopefully it'll continue.
What we did was we made a blog post about asylum processes and other resources on Atheist Republic, and we just put all the link and all the resources there, and all the other organizations that will, like Secular Rescue and everybody else that, and also all the information about the application processes to different countries. And it's all in just one blog. So when we get messages like that, we usually provide them with that.
Yeah, and Harris, you might want to do that in your book as well. Like if you can put up some of these things for people who want to get in touch.
Yeah. I again, when I wrote the final draft, obviously at that time Spartacus was nowhere in the picture. Now, I still don't know whether I'm just looking at this as a test case and see if I can make it work, and if it works, then then I'll definitely look into. I want to be able to do something where it can be a little bit more organized just for that atheist part. And someone actually who retweeted me, it was I don't think I should name them out, but a pretty big following, and they said you shouldn't have used the word rescue an atheist. You got to be smart. So if you had just used rescue an ex-Muslim, you might have had a lot of anti-Muslim people helping as well. And that is, as you said, Armin, that is a bit of a problem, that an atheist is likely to donate to a cause of, for animals, for a Christian in distress, or for a Jew in distress, or even a Muslim in distress, and as well as an atheist in distress. But that means is their money is actually very divided. But I haven't had any Muslim supporting Spartacus, except for one. He donated $5, and I'm really thankful to him.
Oh, yes,
he actually said that I just want to make sure that this goes directly to Spartacus's cause, not to your anti-Islam course, and I obviously am not going to, I'm not going to divert his
That's
money.
No, I mean, you know what? That's fine. I mean, that's the way it starts, right? So
yeah,
I think it's great. So
humans taking care of humans, and again, taking care of atheists is not because we're like, it's a lot of people are like, well, why would I take care of atheists above Muslims and Christians? That seems to be very tribalistic, right? But my reasoning for taking care of atheists is not because you're also a fellow atheist, but because they are the least taken care of. That's the reason.
Yeah.
That's the reason. I mean, even if you're a Christian or a Muslim, or you're not an atheist, I think you should still take supporting atheists, because they seem to be the least talked about when they are wronged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I want to move on for the people who are waiting. If the patrons are listening, now's the time to put in your questions, because we're going to actually start getting into Harris's story as well, because I've been kind of following your stuff on and off recently, more and more frequently, and I think that you're actually one of the more articulate voices out there. And I've said this, like with Abdullah Gondal, Abdullah Samir, who've been on the podcast. I really think that you guys, in terms of being the future of this movement and bringing some sort of balance and reason to it. I know that it's been very polarized recently. I really like the way that you guys are carrying this conversation forward. So your book, it starts with the following words, and I'll read it out. Quote, "I am not anti-religion. I am anti-misogyny, anti-slavery, anti-sexism, anti-violence, anti-ignorance, anti-child abuse, anti-oppression, and anti-war. Religion is anti-me." Right? And that kind of that's a fantastic way to start a book like this.
Wait, I want to push back on that. If you're anti-misogyny, then you're anti-religion. If you're anti all of those things, then aren't you anti-religion?
I mean, it was a poetic thing. It was a poetic idea.
That's why it was a blame game. I mean, so I put the onus back on the word religion. That it's you who is all of that. Okay. So I'm just being me. So it's you who is anti me. So I don't give religion as much importance as I give myself.
Yeah, it's like, hey, it's not me who's anti-religion. It's religion that's anti-me. So of course I'm going to be my position is one of response. It's not of offense, right? Okay. So in that sense,
I'm not very poetic. I'm very mostly very direct with these things. So I don't understand when people are trying to be poetic. I'm not very good.
Armin, you shouldn't be taking it so literally. You have to look at the metaphor. Anyway, so I love that sentence, but. So how did it happen for you? So you're originally from Pakistan. Were you born there, or were you born in Australia? How did the whole thing happen?
No, I was born and raised in Lahore, Pakistan. I was there until I was 19, and I was trying to move to US, but that was 2003. For a young 19-year-old Muslim boy to move to America at that point was almost impossible. So, so just as a backup, I had applied for student visa in Australia, and that just came out of nowhere. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to.
Well, what school did you go to in Lahore?
I went to Cathedral High School. Which was in the old one, which is a very English cathedral school, and my entire initial school time was in a Christian school, and we always had Christians in our school. So I would discuss that as well, like how somewhat I was, and I viewed myself as somewhat very secular, but then we still, all of us Muslim kids, had a different view towards the Christian kids, and there would always be 2 or 3 Christians in every class, and they would be somehow segregated in a way that they're darker in color and the dirty don't go anywhere near them. But we wouldn't say that because all of our teachers were Christians as well. So it was a very bizarre screwed up when I look back.
So the school was Christian, but most of the students weren't?
Yeah, because we don't have that many Christians in Pakistan. It's only probably what.
Why would Muslim parents send their kids to a Christian school?
Because the standard is really high.
It's a big thing.
I didn't hear. Because what?
Because the standard of education was much better than the government schools. So all the private schools historically were made by the British, by the colonial English, and these are they have huge real estate and beautiful cathedral buildings, and they were very nice.
Did they teach Christianity?
Only the Christian kids. So we had Islamic class as well, but very. It used to be very watered down when I grew up and when I actually studied Islam. I was like, fuck that.
Wait, they were teaching you Islam in a cathedral?
No, the school was called. So I'll tell you. Let me explain this to you. So I went to a similar school. No. It's fine. I'm just adding to the story. So I went to a school called Bloomfield Hall. It was like I went there for I think 1.5 years. In Lahore. Now it's called University College London. And we also had most of our teachers were Christian, right? So all of our science teachers, English teachers, and so on. But we did have Islamic studies classes, and if the tiny minority of Christian kids, they had their Christian classes and so on. My wife also went to. There's a lot of missionary schools there, a lot of Catholic schools. So St. Michael's, St. Anthony's, and everything.
What
My
does it
wife
mean,
also went to all those.
cathedral school? What does that mean?
Well, that was just a name. But they did have the original one, the cathedral where they have multiple branches later on. But the original one that was in the heart of Lahore, that's just amazing. They actually have a cathedral there. Yeah.
Okay, so they name after that one. Okay, so these are Christians running. The Christians are running the school, and they're teaching you Islam in the school. So well, they bring you a Muslim teacher for that specific class.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had the same kind of thing.
Pakistan is weird, man.
It is. That's what's so. I'm so glad you brought this up because it's really interesting. Like people don't understand this about Pakistan. There's a lot of strange contradictions there. Like when you told me when Harris said that in Pakistan because this guy was really rich and well off, he was able to get away from, even though he was like the most vocal and satirical apostate out there. And that is something I was like, well, of course he was, because he's rich and he's well connected. And if you're poor and you're not well connected, you don't even have to be a full-on blasphemer. You can be like Asiya Bibi and drink from the wrong cup, supposedly, and end up in jail. So and it is there's a very classist kind of element to it. There's a history of British rule. There are a lot of those remnants. The sort of higher socioeconomic class, the liberal class, which is what I came from and what, Harris, it seems like you came from too. Generally, they send their kids to these Catholic schools because they have higher standards of education. And a lot of those Catholic schools, some of them are remnants of the British rule. Some of them are just because, of Catholic missionaries. So it's a weird amalgamation of a whole bunch of different.
Are there any missionaries left? Isn't it illegal?
Oh yeah.
Wait, isn't it illegal for somebody to go around Pakistan saying Jesus was the Son of God? Like, wouldn't that be blasphemy?
Missionaries are very smart. I remember my mother was she's a professor of education. She worked with a group called Amen, which is all mothers educated now. So basically, these foreign things, they would come in with a lot of money. And they would basically say, hey, listen, we're going to educate all your mothers because, mothers are going to educate their daughters. And Pakistan's like, okay, that's great. We don't have anybody in our side who's going to be able to do that. Right? The mullahs don't even want to go next to them. So they start this thing called Amen, all mothers educated now. And they're educating all these mothers. The only thing is, like, every time they give you a little bit of money or a little bit of food, they also kind of give you a Bible with it. So they do that very discreetly.
But wouldn't that be
I'm speaking... Oh, yeah. No, I'm speaking, but not literally give you a Bible, but they will, by example, right? They sort of spread that.
So
and
they don't give you a Bible. Can you stop being poetic? It confuses the shit out of me.
No, but Ali's actually right. I mean, you don't literally just have to give the Bible to spread the message of Jesus. So Jesus is all love, Christianity is all love.
I'm Christian, so you just look
at
us being Christian and how loving you so much.
By example.
Right.
This is what I keep saying the atheists should be doing. I mean, not necessarily missionaries, but just acting by example. That whole idea. That goes a really long way.
Actually, when I was, I used to listen to Christian podcasts, Christian missionary podcasts a lot, right? Just to see what they're doing. And this was one of their. This is an American Christian podcast, but they were like, look, this is a very long-term investment. When you're working on somebody. You don't talk to them about you might not talk to them about Jesus for like 5 or 5 years. For a long time, you just show them how loving Christians can be, and then they will come and ask you at some point about Jesus. So this is a long-term investment. Yeah, go ahead.
We had one of the guys in our cafeteria, one of the employees in the cafeteria at my university in Karachi. He converted to Christianity as a result of this, and it was weird because I think he was Ismaili before, so nobody really cared, and it was very low profile. Nobody, he worked in a thing where nobody cared either. But he changed his name to Elvis Presley. And it was really funny because he had a name tag. You'd go in, and I was like, "This guy name, I don't know what his name was, Faisal Wasi, or I can't remember."
I'm the king.
But suddenly, new thing, and he's like, "Yeah, I changed my name to Elvis Presley." It was just fucking hilarious. But it happens over there too. So while you have these other stories, these are clearly much less common stories.
But they would they get in trouble if they actually give somebody a Bible?
Not really. They probably should have just probably 100 rupee note in their pocket to give it to a police officer if you catch it. The copper wouldn't even know what they're doing. I mean, it's a third world country. It's not as to enforce a really strict, harsh Islam. You really need to be very competent as well. And Pakistanis are not competent. It's rife with.
But you could get in trouble. You could be in you have to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. You could get unlucky.
Yes.
There was a story, I think in 2016. I think there was an imam of a masjid. He was holding his baby and he fell on a stove, and he was reading his Quran, and he looked at his kid, and he fell on the stove. So he hurried to save his kid, and the Quran fell on the stove in the process because he was trying to save his kid. No shit, right? So that's what you should do. So the Quran got burnt, and his own wife started going in hysterics and started screaming, "Oh, the Quran Shaheed, the Quran got burnt, and it got Shaheed, they got martyred. The Quran got martyred." They can't even say the Quran got burnt. It's blasphemous. So
was it a war? Like what the Quran was jumping in front of I'll save you, and then it got killed.
So the Quran got burnt, and she started.
But Shaheed is used for war and stuff. What the fuck? Okay.
No. Over there, they call anybody who's murdered Shaheed. Essentially, it's really
but they call anybody that calls anybody that was murdered. They call it Shaheed because they will try to sell whatever the process was as a war. Yeah. They have to sell.
Not necessarily the war, because it just they're giving that enormous respect. Basically, Shaheed is synonymous with someone going to heaven. So that's the
died and went to heaven. All right.
So the Quran died. To have. So his wife started screaming, "Oh, Quran got burned! Oh, Quran got Shaheed!" And he was in a village, and the villagers rushed into the house, and they actually started beating the shit out of the imam. The police was called in, and he was arrested. So and then a day later, more villagers came. They broke him out of prison and bashed the shit out of him and killed him. It didn't even make news other than the local news, just that much of news. And my dad showed me, and he was like, "What the hell is this bullshit?" My dad is obviously still a Muslim, but very liberal Muslim. But so that's how stupid it can be, even for imams.
Wait, this was an imam? Holy shit!
Yeah, that was an imam. The poor bagger was an imam. I mean, I shouldn't laugh.
They killed the imam because he was not Muslim enough, because he accidentally burned the Quran. Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But even I was in shock when I found that out, that in this day and age we expect some news stories, a news and as stupidly outrageous as this should have made global news. This should have been on the top of Daily Mail.
Right.
But no, nobody found out. I guess Ali, you probably haven't heard of it. I hadn't heard of it either until 2 days.
I haven't heard of it.
Just another day in Pakistan.
There's crazy shit that happens there. But so you were born in.
Just to tell you how just honor killings, apparently a new statistic that came out, happens 65 times a year. So in Pakistan, so I think that's the statistic, the most recent statistics.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's just move on to we're going into tangents, and the only reason for that is Harris is because everything you're saying is so fascinating that we're moving into like
Pakistan is a fascinating subject.
Yeah, so you have to be a little less interesting here, and you have to talk to.
Yeah, so we could talk about your book.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I want to kind of get so you were born in Lahore like I was, so we both came from the same city. I think we were there for around the same time. I left around 99, even though, yeah.
Oh yeah. I was there. No, but I also read about you. So you lived in Saudi Arabia as well. I did too.
Where?
First, 3 years. Oh, I don't remember. But we were in Jeddah. We were in Jeddah. My father used to work there as an engineer, and my sister was actually born there. So yeah, but I have no memory or recollection of that. I was 3 years old when we came back to Lahore.
What is your book about?
Oh, the book is just about bashing God.
Okay, he's going to undersell it. I'm going to tell you. The book is called The Curse of God: Why I Left Islam. It is. It's actually. It's a really, really good book. So what you do in the book, and I'm going to go through this really quick. I'm going to get back to your life story, because even one of the patrons is saying, like, why can't you finish the story? He's not saying that to you.
No. He was talking about the previous story. The story that he once finished is finished.
It is finished. Yeah. Okay. So, the book is called The Curse of God: Why I Left Islam. It starts off with a chapter called, I think, The Art of Thinking. Right, and it's about how to think. It's about how to think rationally, and it moves on into all of his arguments for why he found Islam to be nonsensical and why he left it. And there are parts in it that I really liked. Is when you get into the Quranic criticism and you speak about all of the different claims that the Quran supposedly makes about science and the Big Bang, and why all of those claims are false, from the Big Bang to embryology. And I think you did a really good job of that as well.
Nice.
And just overall, it's a really good. It's sort of like Armin, what your book was like, or like what the God Delusion was like in a way, but geared towards Islam, right? And Muslims, and from a Muslim's point of view. So I think it's and it's written very well. It's written in a very clear way. Like I was able to just read it very, very easily. It's a very easy read, and you get a lot of information in there.
So where can it's on Amazon right now, right?
Yeah. Well, it hasn't come out yet, but it's
going to come out soon. Yeah, So I wanted a really good forward written by someone really good, and obviously I just thought I'll ask Ali. Let's say if he says yes. So I'm glad he liked it. I'm super excited to read the forward.
I'm more than halfway through it, and the forward is going to come. And I just wanted to really, after I read the book, I was like, okay, I have to make sure that this is as good as the book. So I just want to make sure it's good.
Who's publishing it?
I'll be there soon.
It's Ex Libris, which is I tried with a lot of with a lot of Australian publishers and kind of literary agents actually. Read it, sat on it for a couple of months, and they said, "No, I don't think we can do it." Australia is a very funny country. It's pretty unique in the Western world, where where you're having all this dilemma of extreme left versus extreme right and all that nonsense. Australia is still very mainstream, still carefree in that sense that if you do see someone. And if you do see an Islamist terrorist, and you don't see any qualms in calling a spade a spade. Our Prime Minister just recently said, "Well, we have to recognize the evil or extremist version of Islam," and he got in trouble by the Imams and the Grand Mufti of Australia to apologize to the Muslim community for saying that. So people here are still a lot more laid back, But having said that, they still didn't think that the book should be published. It's too harsh. It's too critical. It's too it could create a lot of problems. So Ex Libris, I had to go with Ex Libris publisher. They are based in the United States.
Mm-hmm. So one of the patrons in the live chat is asking, and don't answer it if it's not safe. He or she is saying. I'm in Australia. Can Harris say where he is in the country, roughly?
Oh yeah, I live in Melbourne. I've just made sure that I've removed my address from all online things, but I don't really live in any fear or anything. I mean, I'm kind of like a bit careless in that sense. I don't think I would be in trouble, but until I posted a story, I don't know if you guys saw it. It did kind of go a bit viral on Facebook, where this guy in Sydney, an ex-Muslim. Very funny story. Sorry, tragic story, but long. But I don't want to go too much into detail. But anyway, so he got beaten up by some Lebanese Muslims in Sydney for being an ex-Muslim, getting in an argument. So I shared his photos and everything. And his father in Pakistan put up a newspaper in the Dawn newspaper that our son is a blasphemer and an apostate, and we don't want him in the country. So he's actually trying to get asylum here in Australia. So it can happen in Australia as well. So,
his father basically disowned him because he's a blasphemer.
Yeah. He disowned him because he fell in love with a Hindu girl, who's an Australian Indian girl who happens to be a Hindu, and not just to blame Muslims here. Actually, the Hindus acted quite irrationally as well, and they because he was married to her, he should have become a permanent resident, or what you think would be the green card in America, or permanent resident in Canada as well. So he would have become that very easily since he was married to an Australian national, but the family of the girl, they just bombarded the immigration department with calls that this is fake marriage, this is phony, this is false.
Yeah. A lot of Hindu people also.
Are you
my
serious?
my youngest brother
did that work? So did he not get like his?
Nah. So he had to change strategy then, and that by that point he had already been disowned. There was a newspaper cutting in Pakistan at that point, so he changed it to protection visa. So he's still been waiting for it for the last 3 years, and that's why I encouraged him to actually come to the news.
Why aren't people not calling bullshit on the accusations of the Hindu family? Like why aren't people not going in and defending him?
Well, the problem with the immigration department is they don't have the powers of a federal police or the police department, so they don't have the resources to investigate as much or as thoroughly as they can. So they do have a backdoor where they can just say that we are not satisfied that the information is correct. We cannot ascertain either way, so we're just going to let it go. So they have the power to just decline the application, and that's what they ended up doing because they said, well, we've received too much information. That kind of indicates that it's not genuine.
Let me know if this is if you don't want to answer this question, but are your parents okay with you?
They're not okay with me publicly speaking. So, it's they also know their son. So it's
are they safe? Like where are they? They're still in Pakistan?
No, they live in Australia. My whole family lives in Australia, which is another reason I actually started writing this book in 2012. At that point, my whole family, my mum was still living here at that time, but my father and my sister were still in Pakistan. Even though they're all Muslims, they're all follow Islam in their own image, So I actually decided not to write it at that time, and then this Ayaz's Army thing happened, and that's when I thought I should speak up.
Yeah, and I think what I did was the way that I'll let you know how I kind of started the foreword for this book is so maybe anticipating the hesitancy that some of the people have in publishing it is that I said, when you have ex-Catholics, you read about them all the time in magazines and on stand-up comedy stages. Secular Jews are pretty much the default kind of Jew. Ex-Hasidics get their own Netflix documentary. Ex-Scientologists get book deals and TV show deals like Leah Remini. But the ex-Muslim, who has to actually, the cost of which is much, much higher than maybe all of them combined, is somehow called a native informant and a sellout, and that's something that, and that is a form of bigotry.
With the native informant, people who accuse us of native informant, I say we're not a native informant, we're actually whistleblowers. So there's no department that would actually discourage whistleblowing. That's a good thing.
We think alike too, even though we're both the not only are we Lahoris and live in Saudi Arabia, we kind of I think exactly the same way that you do.
Do you want to get a room, you two? No.
Okay,
no.
Well, hey, listen. If it means if it's a free trip to Melbourne, wow.
So I have a question. I forgot my question. Fuck.
Well, let's get into your thing. Okay, now let's let Harris talk. So we've got and I'm as guilty of interrupting right now as Armin is. So we're just very, very fascinated by this. So you're born in Lahore. You come from a relatively liberal family. What happened? You came from, was your family, you said that your father wasn't very, very religious initially, but did you become religious and then lose your faith, or did you research it and decide, what was the story?
Well, okay. Well, so I always had little questions in my mind, even when I was like 9 or 10. I mean, who created God was like, I thought, like, come on, it's a pretty obvious question, right? Like, I mean, I think any kid would ask his mum, and I remind my mum that all the time, and she says, well, maybe, I caused this disappointment. She says that, but as a joke, of course. She prays 5 times a day. She's quite comfortable with her religiosity, or maybe not, actually. So I asked her, who created everything? Oh, Allah did. And then who created Allah? Well, I don't know. We don't talk about this, or we don't think that far. We don't know the answer. Just say that. We don't know that. My father once took me to Minar, Pakistan, which is the Tower of Pakistan, and this was the biggest thing I had ever seen. And anyone who's been to Lahore would know that there are not that many skyscrapers there, so especially in the late 80s or early 90s. And this was a pretty tall structure. And I thought, wow, Dad, was that Allah Mia? Was that God? And he said, no. I said, but that was the biggest thing I had ever seen. And he said, no, that God is even bigger than that. And we used to sleep on rooftops in Pakistan back in those days. And I used to always look at the nice. Yeah. I used to look at the night sky, and I used to look at the stars. I was like, wow, just what the hell is going on up there? And so all these questions were in my mind when I was 9, 10, 11, 12. But there came a point when I was 15, I had a huge problem with hypocrisy, which is why I just recently became a vegetarian as well. So I had a problem with hypocrisy. Like, okay, well, and everything I learn, someone tells me that, okay, music is haram, and, talking to girls is haram, and this is haram, and why are we doing this? So I try to tell myself, again, it's not easy to get out of religious indoctrination, but it's easier to go the other way and become more stricter and just stop looking at watching Bollywood movies, and just start fasting. And there was a point when I would fast, when I would have more fast than just the month of Ramadan, and I was praying 5 times a day.
Wait, so you were you were very religious?
I was forcing myself, I think, because I just didn't want to be a hypocrite. That if there is that's the rationale right behind it.
Consistency. You got to be consistent.
That's exactly. Okay, now you're sounding more like me. Okay, so good.
No, but I didn't jump off. I wasn't as rational as you. and go straight to heaven.
I wasn't as rational as you are, man. I didn't jump out. I'm sorry. I know that this is a
no. He's right. That was their most rational thing to do. Yeah, go on.
Logic. But the logic was right. I mean, if there's a creator of billions of galaxies, and he just did everything, and he created us to do the things as he wants and to worship him, then why not do it? I mean, who am I to stand against this enormous entity? So that's why there was a point where from 14 till 17, I think I was very religious. I would go pray crazy, but still there was something ticking in my mind that something doesn't sound right. And then there came a point when I became very carefree. I just, like when I came to Australia, I was like, wow, look at all these beautiful girls, I want to try alcohol.
It's the girl, when you're trying to be religious, you always think like, okay, this can't be that hard. You just pray, you just fast during Ramadan. Well, how could it be? It's the girls that gets you.
It's all the fault of the women, as they say.
If they relax that rule, a lot of people would remain Muslim, right? But go
ahead. Or if Australia had all the women covered up, I probably still would have been a Muslim.
No. You guys are missing one thing. You're missing one thing. This is how, like in Afghanistan and Pakistan. No. This is how they recruit actually teenagers, because there is segregation. A lot of those kids, they are super, super horny. They know that they're not going to get laid because of segregation. It's haram. So they're like, hey, listen, if you suicide bomb and if you kill yourself now, you're going to get like loads of virgins up in heaven immediately. So that is actually, I mean, this sounds like a joke, but it's very serious for a kid who's like 14, 15, 16. That is a huge incentive to do the whole suicide bombing. It really is.
I wrote that part in my book as well, which you would have read, Ali, that I almost became a jihadi. Almost. I was like my father's one little yes away from becoming a jihadi, who probably would have been killed some 19 years ago. Where Lashkar-e-Taiba, my father, gullible as he was, he thought, oh, this is going to be some beautiful sightseeing trip. And we had a friend, Muslim. My publisher actually told me not to write his name, but fuck him, I'll say it. So he said, yeah, let's go to Kashmir, and we're just going to go check it out. And my father's like, oh, this is awesome. And then as soon as we sat in the bus, all I saw was men with beards. I was like, shit. There's not going to be any perving going on. So I was like 15, 16. But I was still religious at that point. I was praying 5 times a day, and that's probably why I might have somewhat agreed as well at that point. But anyway, but I was still, I was still living in Lahore in a nice house, and I would barely see any poverty or any suffering or anything. So so we went there, and man, I've got to tell you, they showed us this training of how they send jihadis into across the line of control into Indian Kashmir, and they badmouthed the shit out of Pakistani army and said, how 72,000 soldiers gave up East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, and my father was like, no, he's just going to go to the army, and that's what they started by. So Hafiz Saeed gave us a lecture there, and it was like, and I was like, wow, this is actually quite cool. The amount of gunfire. I had never heard anything like that. I've never been around guns, even in Pakistan or since then. But the amount of gunfire, there was this house made up, and they had just painted. They had put mannequins there with Indian Army tops, and they would get in, and they've got Kalashnikovs and all that, and the guns, and they're just shooting. And the amount of gunfire is like, wow, this is like real, True Lies kind of movie going on in here. So this is kind of cool. So I was like, but they G you up so much that I was like, okay, yeah, I want to fight for my country. I want to fight for my people. I'm going to free Kashmir, and who knows, if I get killed, I'll become a hero.
And when you're in that moment, it's so powerful. It's like the emotion when everybody's around it, and it's I remember just on But go ahead.
I mean, this all sounds very appealing to a teenager. First, you have, you get girls later, and you also get to play with guns. Like, this is like the fantasy of all the gamers right now in the West. Like, this is the real thing.
And Republicans, yeah.
But anyway, my dad got me out of there, and he said, no, screw you. So as soon as I came back, I just forgot about it. I was like, yeah, screw it, whatever. I like my comfortable bed because. Yeah, I remember one thing, and the first night when we slept there, it was like a room, probably 16, 17 square meter room, maybe 20 square meter room, and they had like 100 Maulvis, bearded men, all lying on the ground, including myself, under these heavy dunas, and I was like, oh shit, this is just so disgusting, really.
So you just went from like, I'm gonna go kill infidels and die for my countries. No. And then and then a little bit after, you were like, I actually like my bed.
So that was the first time. After that, I saw all this glamour of this firefighting and everything. I'm like, I want to be here. I'm gonna die with my brothers in arm. But then when we went back to Lahore, when my father took me back to Lahore, that's when I go, this is awesome. I'm not.
It is. I mean, the comfort is just.
This is like such an extreme shift from one side to another.
Yeah.
Modern amenities and comfort and luxuries of life actually get people away from fundamentalism and dogmatism, and this is why I say the problem in countries like Pakistan is not only just this fundamentalism. The fundamentalism would also go away as people become more economically, in better condition.
Well, it's about security, right? I mean, this is study after study has shown is a generally religiosity, right, is inversely correlated. It was, the more religious. Yeah. So you have the more religious. The more people,
religiosity brings poverty, and poverty brings religiosity. It's
I mean, you have to think. Right. You have to think about it. Supposing you're from the family of Asia Bibi. Asia Bibi is a very prominent case, so everybody knows about her, and so she's getting some help. She may get some justice, but there's like as Sean told us, like there's loads of people out there who are in her position, and nobody even knows who they are. And these are people who are born in an unjust class of society. They're gonna live that way their whole life. They're gonna die that way, and while they're gonna be much richer, more well-off people who are going to do horrible things, and they're going to die. They're going to get away with it. So you have to tell yourself something. You have to tell yourself that, okay, there's going to be justice. Everything I'm seeing right now in the world, like this is the life I'm living. It's completely unjust. I can't change it, but you know what? There's going to be justice at some point. And, if you're insecure, if you're not secure, you're going to want some kind of security. So whether it's, physical safety, financial security, and just psychological comfort. I mean, these are the things that everybody wants. If any of these things are, then the more you have this, the less you have to rely on sort of supernatural, fantastical, made up things for some kind of security.
So if you didn't have a comfortable bed to go to, you might have just stayed there and killed some people, right?
Yeah, probably. And one of my distant cousins actually did go to Afghanistan jihad post 2001, and he never made it back. His family told us that he was probably kidnapped, but he called them that I want to come back, but he was in Afghanistan at that time, and he died probably there. We never heard from him ever again. So I could have been him too. I guess it's just. But again, my case is again weird. Like, I mean, I've always people like me from my background, like same with Ali as well, and all the other kids that I went to school with didn't have any of these experiences. And I look back now, some of the friends that I stay in touch with through WhatsApp in a school group chat, and the dynamics are very strange. They're very similar, but again, it's still anecdotal in a way that it represents a very tiny class of people. From my school friends, I think there are 30 of us, and 2 are really, really extremely religious. Majority of them are just like, yeah, whatever. They will send a dirty, funny, humorous WhatsApp video as well, and whatever Bollywood dance clips or whatever, or maybe something more explicit. So and then 2 and only I being the extreme opposite on the other end, where I'm just not only just an atheist but actually an anti-theist. So I think Pakistan is pretty dynamic, and that's why it frustrates the shit out of me as well sometimes. Even though, as Ali said, I could also go to Pakistan, live there for a week unnoticed unless someone snitches on me, and then it becomes out of control. I still think the government of Pakistan would actually say, please get out of here, don't become a headache for us. So the governments actually know that they don't want to attract this negative attention, especially after this Asia Bibi as well. They don't want to go through all over again. It just doesn't make any sense. If you hang someone like a Azami or Asia Bibi, the whole world is going to just go absolute shit.
And they're very sensitive to international, as Sean mentioned this too. They're very sensitive to international pressure because they're in a tough financial situation. They want people to invest in the country. So, they want people to feel like it's more secure. So they don't want to give the impression that they're this sort of archaic place with draconian laws, and they're executing it.
And they need to be exposed. And actually, the fact that they care about this shows to you that the pressure works. So to people that think, like, oh, these things don't work, it does work. Do the campaigns, do the petitions, all that stuff. Change.org, all social media, Facebook campaigns, videos, blogs, all of that stuff. They work. Don't share those stuff, share the articles, share the news. It puts them under, you might change their opinion. You might get them to release somebody, or get somebody out of there. So these things, and even if you don't have a big of a following, you have to understand each one of these clicks makes the Facebook algorithm, the YouTube algorithm, the Twitter algorithm. It feeds into that and makes them show it to more people. So you could be even if you don't have a big following, at least you're on the right side of things. But go on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it works. Pressure is a global village. So every country has to answer to some extent to the international community, and we're all linked to each other. So yeah, look what happened to Khashoggi's incident with Saudi Arabia as well, but that's a monarchy, totally different. But countries like Pakistan, who are supposedly on paper are democratic countries, so they have a lot of things to answer to the UN human rights, UNHCR, and the European Union, etc. So the pressure works, and that's why we should keep talking about it. And that's why I hate nationalism as well. And I often run into Hindu nationalists who get on my page because they think they're gonna see some Pakistan bashing and some Islam bashing.
Oh yeah, join the club.
Yeah, that's why we have a little bit of a Hindu bashing mixed in with all of this stuff.
I sometimes have to add that in just to tell them, just to piss them off that, hey, I'm not on your side, so I'm actually on my own side. Well,
Hinduism bashing, not Hindu bashing.
Yeah,
but
we've had to do that with, like, I've had to start doing that with. One of the things around 2014, I started seeing this happening, and this is something I actually wanted to ask you about. So let's just get into it because
before we go there,
go ahead.
Sang in the live chat, our patron is asking is mentioning props to the judges for that decision. Do you give props to the judges? Because I don't know, because they say there was no. I think he's referring to the BB case. I'm not sure. But I was thinking, like, they said there was no evidence for blasphemy. So basically, these judges would say, I don't know if they had a choice, but they would basically execute the girl if there was evidence for blasphemy. So is it fair to say props to the judges, or is it not fair?
I mean, this is why, it's a good question, and I think absolutely props to the judges, props to the politicians, props to every news anchor who was actually advocating. There is absolutely no doubt in anyone's mind that. And this is why religious fundamentalists are actually right in their demand to hang Asia, because she probably did commit blasphemy. Obviously, you and I would say that, so what, big fucking deal. That is not a hangable offense. It's not even a finable offense. But Pakistan played with fire there. They introduced a blasphemy law, and they now can't get rid of it. And every time when someone gets accused, now I'll give you a funny statistic as well with the blasphemy cases. Actually, I'll probably remember, but wouldn't remember it exactly. But I'll give you an overall figure. Every time someone gets accused of blasphemy, it's the entire prosecution's job should be to try to find a guilty, right? I mean, that's what prosecution does. I mean, they arrest someone, they register a case against them, and then they try to find the accused behind bars. That's their mission, right? But they always try. The state always tries to prove that the actual accused never committed blasphemy. No one in the history of Pakistan has ever been found guilty of blasphemy, and no one's ever been hung. It just doesn't happen. And I think there's been since its inception, I think the number's been close to over 1,000. But it just doesn't happen. So the point is, the actual judges, the judiciary, the army, even the governments are actually very centrist, secularist kind of people. With the exception of few judges, there was one Supreme Court judge who was an absolute dickhead, and I think he's been sacked ever since. But he again left a massive mess for all of us, which I'll tell you very briefly. So I think props to the judges, props to the politicians. But it's not enough, because, and I've got to be realistic as well. Imran Khan can't just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get rid of the blasphemy law. It's just no one has balls.
It would be civil war, wouldn't it, if that happened?
Probably not. In 1953, they had a similar riot by the religious fanatics, and the army general at that time absolutely bashed the shit out of them and sent them back to the caves they had just come out of. And there was no religiosity in Pakistani politics until...
Is it worse than right now, or better?
It probably would have been worse, but we don't know. But
right now, like the Islamic forces, are they more powerful right now than compared to then, or less?
Well, I don't know. We don't have any independent data to verify that, but how the news anchors, they actually say, how they describe it. They say, well, the Lahore and Karachi, there were people everywhere. This was just a few thousands of people. It wasn't that bad. Karachi was probably a little bit worse. But in Punjab, there were a few thousand people. So it wasn't that bad, but it is still enough to scare the very foundation of the state, and the government was just.
I would disagree.
Why was Bibi in jail for like 8 years though? Like, why didn't they do this earlier?
Oh yeah, because they can't let anyone go. Now Yaz's army is in there as well, and he's probably being put in worse conditions. They can't just, once it reaches a certain level of popularity. Or news coverage, they can't just say, "Hey, go," and they know that these fanatics are going to come out, and then they are going to turn the country upside down. So it's just not that easy for them. So what's easy for them? Just Shahan's father, Salman Taseer, he was just basically saying, "Well, I think we should look into it." He was just saying, probably deep down inside, now listening to Shahan, these guys are very secularist people. But again, a classic example of a classic liberal Pakistani who's very modern, well-educated, well-spoken, but still a Muslim. And when you told him about what can be in the Quran and whatnot, he didn't know about it. And that's how most liberal Pakistanis are. They actually don't know. And I think it's probably the same everywhere. Yeah. But the point is, it's just they just don't have the balls to actually overturn this law. And I think that's just going to happen slowly, gradually over time, as more and more people become atheists and then say, "Okay."
But I'm just gonna sorry. I just want to. There's one small thing I'm going to disagree with you on. I think that there is. Well, actually, this is probably not much of a disagreement. I think you'll probably agree here that despite the fact that there were a lot of these secular forces, I think they've always tried to play with religion because they knew that there was an appeasing the religious gave them some sort of political capital. And that is symptomatic of the fact that this religiosity virus was always in Pakistani societies because politicians always catered to it. Like in 1956 is when the name of the Pakistan was changed to the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. The Islamic Republic was added in 1956, which is about 9 years after the country was founded, and it was just before this. Alishba actually went in and she dug out some of the old papers, the newspapers from around that time, and there were a lot of sort of secular Pakistanis arguing against it. It was a very, very vibrant debate, but ultimately the name was changed. So there was an element of appeasing the sort of Islamic fundamentalists even back then. Like there was some.
Wasn't it the Saudi money that made everything worse?
That came much later.
That came later.
We're talking about 1956.
I absolutely agree with you. But that's when the debate could have become violent, and that's why there were riots in 1953, and probably the government at the time thought, okay, well, let's just find a middle ground. That's something exactly what they've done now. But I think now the other two, People's Party was also responsible. Bhutto, the legendary Bhutto, freaking Islamized Pakistan as well. Even though he was a secular,
banned alcohol. We talked about this before too. The Ahmadis thing with the Ahmadis.
But you're saying that people are going to get more atheists or more secular or whatever, and things. That's how we resolve. But is that happening in Pakistan?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, it's the statistics. The whole 1 percentage point grew in 10 years from 2005 to 2015. Now, so 2% of Pakistani population, which translates as 4 million people, now are atheists. And
how many percent?
2%. 2% of Pakistani population. That's 2015 survey of the Gallup Index of Religiosity, and the numbers are. I was shocked to see that even in Saudi Arabia they managed to get that out.
5%. It's actually I think it's 2012, but
So wait,
yeah, Saudi Arabia was 5%.
Saudi Arabia has twice per capita more than twice per capita atheists than Pakistan.
Yeah. Yep. According to that survey. Yeah, so 5%. And these are people who identify as convinced atheists. The language that was used in the poll was convinced atheists. So, but that's like 4 million people in Pakistan. That's like 1.2, 1.3 million people in Saudi Arabia.
By the way, no wonder Atheist Republic for a very long time. When you look at the demographics of our fans, for a very long time, the #1 country was Pakistan.
Oh, there's a lot of men. And when I was there, it was, if you talk to people, there are a lot of like secular liberal Pakistanis. When you really sat down and had a heart-to-heart conversation with them, a lot of them would turn out to be atheists. In fact, like every family gathering I'd go through, at all this stuff, all these different parties, when I would talk about things openly, there would always be one sort of like uncle in the back. He's like, "Oh, you know, beta, I think just like you do. I agree. Don't tell anybody." Always. Yeah, that's how it happened.
And that was my always view as well. I always thought it's like that cool uncle or the very educated one, the English influenced one, or from the higher education or a higher posh societies of Lahore and Islamabad or Karachi are the ones that I get messages from Mia Chunu, from Chikwal. So I'm like, from really shanty villages, and they say, yeah, you know what you say makes sense. And I was like, whoa. I'm like, these are like what otherwise, if you saw them, pardon my, it's a term that is usually thrown around, but people would understand what I'm trying to say. They call them villager people, like Pendus, you know, like, I mean, you would assume that you would have, that these people would be highly religious, these people would be highly dogmatic and very ritualistic and superstitious. But I get messages from them and I go, wow. So that gives me courage, and I think, but that number is 2%. Well, you know.
Well, more recently it's can rise, because the thing is, because of things like the Lebek, like Tariq al-Lebek, and because of in Iraq and Syria, I mean, Thomas Friedman wrote about this in the New York Times, that there are a lot of Muslims, young Muslims, are leaving Islam because of what they're seeing with ISIS, because they're finding that they are victims of this religion as well, and they're being more exposed to outside influences. And
it's their fuck this shit moment.
Yeah,
it is, because these people are bad advertisement for Islam, which I say the true advertisement of Islam. I can't remember the name of this YouTube rapper, and they went viral, the video, I think a year ago or so, and he said that all my life I thought you were wrong, brother. Islam is not, this is not Islam. Islam is a religion of peace. And then I sat down, had a moment with me, and then I thought, maybe you're right, I'm wrong. Islam is not the religion of peace. And I think that a lot of people are having this epiphany where they're realizing you don't have to become a scholar to work out how bad some ideas of Islam are, how discriminatory it is, how misogynistic it is. And
Zayn Malik came out as an ex-Muslim.
How good is that?
Malik that's I mean, he was it's really bizarre, but I've seen, Nas Daily, the big Facebook star. He's come out and he's talked about it. Yeah. And a lot of these guys, they come out and they say, well, I believe in God, but I just don't think I'm a Muslim anymore. I've stepped away from religion, and I really like it, because I remember when I went.
He didn't even say that. He's like, I don't even know what's right. Like, he was like, everybody thinks they're right. How do you know? So he's to me, he's an agnostic atheist. That Nas Daily guy.
No, So it's kind of. So it's really interesting how that's happening with more and more. I mean, the Kumail Nanjiani's The Big Sick, he expressed that. There was, Aziz Ansari, the religion episode of Master of None.
I don't know if you guys know him. He's pretty big here down in Australia. Osama Sami. I don't know if you know him. He's an Australian radio host. He's also a Pakistani from Karachi. Very funny comedian. Well, actually, he's a comedian. He's
I
good.
just got a message from a friend of mine saying Zayn Malik. Did we just mention this person? Singer Zayn Malik says he's not a Muslim. Is that a big deal?
That's exactly what we were talking about right now.
Okay. He's huge. How huge is he?
He's
28 million.
Have you heard of the band One Direction?
Okay. And wait, is he in Pakistan? No. He would be.
No, he's
Armin. Look him up on Twitter. You'll see how many Twitter followers he has. Armin has no idea who Zayn Malik is.
Armin, now you've been dethroned. You would no longer be known as the hottest ex-Muslim alive.
Yeah, they're just gonna be like, how do you not know who Zayn Malik is?
Yeah, this guy's got.
He doesn't even know about his own status. Yeah,
this guy's got.
I don't know singers and.
So
this guy's a hot book.
Yeah, so I want to ask you something. So down there in Australia, like obviously, you're coming out, you speak openly, you're talking about your location, you're here. That Osama that you're talking about, the radio host, he's come out openly. Yeah, Zayn Malik has come out openly. All of these guys have come out openly. Why hasn't Imam Tawhidi come out as an ex-Muslim yet? Why does he still? Is he still like badly targeted, or what's going on with that? He's been on the show previously, by the way. And
I watched some of it, but then I couldn't watch the rest of it.
I was having trouble with it too. But
look, I mean, I think back then Yasmin used to host your show as well. Look, I just don't buy it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, how can you? I think the problem that initially when he came out, it was like, whoa, an imam saying all these things. What kind of an imam is he? But then slowly and steadily, you look into his work, and you can see there's more Shia versus Islam, and it's Shia version. He's just putting the Shia
proselytizer, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's a Shia proselytizer, and
what's some examples that makes you think that?
Well, because but he says, well, Aisha was a 9. Well, this is a Sunni tradition.
No, that's and we have Shia hadith that says Aisha was 9.
Okay, so let me explain it this way. So I grew up in a Shia household, right?
Yeah. I'm Sunni,
and everything. So what he does is he takes elements that are critical of that ex-Muslims criticize and that sort of anti-Muslim far-right people criticize. He takes elements of that are common with the stuff that Shias criticize and repeats them ad nauseum. So, for instance, shutting down Wahhabi mosque, Wahhabism is evil, Sunni Islam is not real Islam, all this other crap. Literal readings of the Quran, and he will tend to do that, and that's actually part of Shia proselytization as well.
I would have no problem. I would have no problem with if he was doing that, because I would do that too. I would say that too, shut down Wahhabis. But my point is that, okay, but I'm an atheist, right? So if you ask me, hey, what do you think of Shias? I'll say, well, just a different flavor of bullshit.
But he won't say that.
But would he say that? No, of course not. So, okay, I'm not interested in what you're saying. So you just, and also I've seen the way he talks. There was a recent Melbourne terrorist attack, if you want to call it terrorist attack. It was this mentally deranged guy. Obviously, he was a Muslim, so he did have some inspiration in that. But he was a nut job, right? And the way he just catches on these moments and gets these tweets, and he gets all these likes and followers and love messages from the white Australian and the white people. I just think that there's something that is not real about him.
But that's what throws a lot of people. So here's the thing. It's very, very easy. If you want to, on Twitter, if you want to get likes and retweets and lots of followers, as an ex-Muslim, it's very, very easy to do.
Oh, yeah.
It's very easy to do, because you just have to join the whole Imam Tawhid, that side of things, and you will get it. And then people have gotten it. And it's very tempting, because, you get loads and loads of likes, and then you're like, oh, okay, great, I'm very influential. Then you get outside of Twitter, and you realize nobody gives a fuck about you. Twitter is very strange that way. So, yeah. But I think he is one of those sort of like Twitter-centric celebrity imams, because there is a very vocal and very active sort of far-right echo chamber on Twitter. Like
I try not to guess what people's intentions are. I just try to fight their whatever if they're saying something that is wrong, I'll just point to the fact that, okay, that's nonsense, right? But I don't try to figure out the motivations or the intentions they have, because you can never know. No.
You can make a good guess.
Yeah, you can make it. So here's the thing. I mean, there's, people talk about prejudice. Prejudice means to judge before. It means to prejudge. That's where it comes from. But then there's judging. Judging is based on actual stuff that you've observed, right? So I think that I wouldn't conclude someone's intentions unequivocally, but I think that a lot of times you can put things together. Right.
But what's the point of that? I mean, if somebody is spitting out nonsense,
because it matters.
Just point out the fact that it's nonsense, like everything.
But it matters.
Like, if you have that out.
Yeah,
because they're fighting bad ideas. I just don't. Want to make it I don't want to make it personal.
Well, it's not personal if you call that. You're still, at the end of the day. I don't know. I don't care what Imam Tawhidi looks like or what's the color of his beard. I have no interest in that. What kind of hat he wears. I'm still challenging his ideas. So it's not personal.
Yeah, so my thing is this, Armin. The reason I think his intentions matter is that if you have a neo-Nazi who's criticizing Israeli policy, and if you have me criticizing the elements of Israeli policy that I don't like, we're coming from very different places, and I think those different places are relevant. Okay, because what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to make a legitimate criticism. When all the neo-Nazis say, yeah, Ali's right, yeah, he's one of us, then it discredits me too. So it actually behooves me to dissociate myself from them, because what if you're shit at trying guessing people's intentions?
Well, then you're just shit, and you would be made fun of. You will be exposed, and you would have to face a lot of embarrassment. So these are the consequences.
But I'm shit at people. I just listen to what people have to say, and I say this is right, this is wrong. I'm not very good at figuring out people's intentions.
I'm generally like overall I'm a little bit better at it. I'm actually better at figuring out people's intentions. I'm pretty good at it. I've been right about a lot of people who I kind of called out.
I have been very right about Imran Khan so far. Everything I've said, and I've been attacked by a lot of people for being pro Imran Khan and all that. And I know exactly how
it's still too early. You got to give him a year.
No. I've done a PhD on him and Richard Dawkins basically. I mean, these two people I've listened and read the most in my life, and there are a lot of things that I've actually said that I wrote a little piece after he became a prime minister. I made a video on him, and I said exactly what's going to happen to Asia Bibi, and I still predicted, but now it's pretty obvious anyway. She will get out. When I said that, Asia Bibi is going to be found innocent. That's the state of that's what the state wants to do, and they're going to do it, and then there are going to be some riots. Okay. And then it's going to go out. So anyway, so you can look into, if you focus someone, if you watch and read someone long enough, you can actually make a very good idea of what people think. For example,
what do you think about the quote that people often use, saying great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people? Is that wrong?
Oh yeah, I think these quotes actually sound very smart, but and when
that's why we're not believing in it. We're just actually discussing whether it's right.
Yeah. So it just no, but people matter, right? I mean, which person is coming from? If Sam Harris just came here and said, there's 20% of Muslims believe that, and then some right-wing nut job said 20% of people believe that, you would be more inclined to take Sam Harris's view more seriously because of his past reputation and who he is, rather.
Yeah, people build up their credibility because it's like their credibility
from authority. Like, wouldn't that be?
No. It's the opposite, Armin. So what happens is that Sam Harris is somebody who, for instance, has spent many years trying to have honest conversations. He's built up a sort of credit history, right? Think of it as a credit history. He's got a credit history where you're like, okay, this guy, when he has said things that are wrong, he has gone ahead and he has said, okay, I will delete this and I'll apologize for it. When he has tried to engage with people and have honest conversations with them. So when he's talking about, for example, race and IQ, right? Even if you disagree with him, you can think, okay, he's coming from a place of good faith. You can basically take his intention based on his past history, which is an evidence-based history of his past behavior, and you can say that, okay, I think he's coming from a good place. When you have somebody like Richard Spencer coming out and talking about the exact same topic, race and IQ, and making the exact same points, you can say, okay, based on this guy's history, I don't want to take him seriously. I don't want to be associated with him. And I think that is, especially in the kind of political atmosphere we're in right now, I think those distinctions are very, very important. It's like what you're saying about the Hinduism, right? Like sometimes you have to come out and you have to actually speak against it because they may align with you in the kind of things you think about Islam, but you do want to dissociate from them yourself because you know that they're coming from a different place. The only difference is that they're coming from a different place, and that is something that can be ascertained. So,
do you think? One policy I have, one strategy I have is to be charitable to when it comes to assuming people's intention. Do you think that's wrong?
No, it's not wrong. And that's where I'm talking about the prejudging versus judging. If someone comes into something blind, right, and you don't know anything about them, then yes, you should always give them the benefit of the doubt. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about somebody who has a record of saying things like with Imam Tawhidi. Like I remember when we had our podcast, I asked him about Pauline Hanson, who had called immigrants dogs, like all Muslim immigrants dogs, and he had defended her as this great woman and everything. So I asked him about it. I was like, she's calling you, essentially, you're a Muslim immigrant, she's calling you a dog too. So do you really want to be associated with that? And he tried to dodge the question,
Yeah.
What would you guys ask him right now if you got the chance to meet with him?
Well, I'll tell him just come out clean. Like, I mean, come on, you found a lot of bad hadiths and you found a lot of bad examples of Muhammad. Just come out and say Muhammad was a man of his own time. He was just a normal man. And Quran
I asked
doesn't.
him that. He said, "Do you want to get me killed?" That's what he said.
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah, I read that. I remember that when he said, "Well, why don't you come out as ex-Muslim?" And he said, "So that's why I thought, hang on, this is what the problem I have." Again, Majid Nawaz is someone I really admire, but I can never be him because I just can't be the person, even if it's whatever your strategic goals are. I just can't be the person who secretly believes something but keeps a certain image in front of the people. So if Imam Tawhidi, he should have said, no, man. He should have said that to you. No, I believe Muhammad was the best man who ever lived and Quran is a literal word of God. He should have said that. He shouldn't have said, oh, do you want to get me killed? So what? Are you keeping a secret here? Are you an closet ex-Muslim? So don't be like that.
If he comes back, like,
wait, do you think all closet ex-Muslims should come out even if they're going to be at risk?
No, of course not. But I don't think he would be at much of a risk than
somebody punched him in the face in the street.
Oh, come on! I mean, it's yeah. Well, he. I don't. Yeah, look, you got to be obviously careful. I don't go in front of the Lebanese mosques and say, but this is a real Islam or Muhammad did this or that. I don't do that. You got to be careful.
I do that. Is that bad?
Yeah, nobody's punched you in the face. And if somebody does punch you in the face, you're not going to go.
Somebody did punch me in the face in one of the stuff I did.
Listen, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people.
Yeah,
I have had. There are many people. I'll tell you something. Who haven't come out for genuine risk, and I get that, and I'm not saying that you can't. But even in the last 5 years, I mean, we're all out and we're all talking. Everybody knows where we are. We're doing it. I know, it's like, online, there is an anonymous Twitter person, and she was saying that, hey, listen, I get death threats too. And I was like, nobody knows who the fuck you are. Who do you get death threats from? And you're like, it didn't make any sense. So there are, I understand that a lot of people have to be anonymous, and I've been the first to defend them. Right, and I remember I used to be friends with Aina Nice Mangoes, and I used to defend her for being anonymous, and I get that. But there are many, but there are, like, I don't know. This is hard to explain without sounding like an asshole. Go ahead.
I think I can explain. It's perfectly fine if you're anonymous. So you don't have any ambitions or any goals or not overwhelming goals or anything. So you can do that, but you don't have to fake it, right? I mean, if you are a closeted ex-Muslim but pretending to be an imam, or I'm not necessarily speaking on imam.
Why would you pretend to be an imam?
Why the fuck would you bother? Like, and again, this is the problem I have.
What if the argument is that I think it could make a bigger difference? Again, this is horse shit in my opinion, but I'm just playing devil's advocate.
It's objectively horse shit.
Yeah. What if your argument is like, I think as an imam I could convince more people?
Well, that's why I said. Like, if it's your strategy. It's like your brilliant evil genius kind of strategical move. Fine, go ahead. But I just think I don't think I could be like that. That's why I just
don't.
So
are you against this whole reform movement thing?
Are we really gonna go there?
No. Just tell me yes or no.
Let's not talk. Let's spend 2 minutes on this, Max. Because we're almost out of time.
I'm gonna say reform can happen and does happen and has been happening. I know what your answer is going to be. I've seen you so many times, and it's the R word in your case. But again, personally, I'm not going to make any efforts to reform Islam. I'm going to make efforts to get people out of Islam. That's me. And I think someone in your podcast with Sam, someone made a very good comment that it's like a wafer biscuit and something. Ex-Muslims are eating it from one side. Reformers are eating it from the other side, and when they keep eating and they keep chewing it, and then eventually there's going to be no Islam left, or at least
the reformers are not chewing on anything; they're protecting it. One, second of all, I never said reform cannot happen. I said what is Muslims that are reforming. It's not Islam that is reforming.
That's fine. We all agree on that.
And Muslims are reforming because of ex-Muslims and people that shit on Islam, not because of reformers that defend Islam. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I think we all agree with that.
Reform is Islam's. I mean, they do reform from whatever outside pressure they get.
From outside pressure.
Yeah, of course. Outside pressure always works.
Bring in the outside pressure, there's nothing from inside that makes Islam better. That's what I'm
No,
saying.
but
Even the reformist leader. I read this book, right? I read the book Radical, right? I went through the journey of Majid Nawaz and other reformists. There was never a point in time where they were fundamentalists or radical, and they read the Quran one last time, and they're like, "Oh shit, I need to be a reformist Muslim." No, it was always something outside of Islam that convinced them that they should be a reformist Muslim. So if they become liberal, moderate, whatever you're calling it now, if they become liberal because of something other than Islam, why are they prescribing Islam to other people as a way to reform them?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a necessary step in between. You guys would have had a lot more experience than I do in that. Like, I get messages where people, my strategy is just somehow just make a video, make a very good sharp point that would attack the very thought process, and then they're gonna go back. They're gonna think about, oh, that's fucking Harris Sultan. I'm gonna give it to him. I'm gonna tell him that, and then they sleep on it. They think about it, and then the next day they can't come up with it. So it's like an ignition, and they start thinking about it. So a lot of people that I stay in touch with, it's a journey. No one, I think Vidu is probably the only person that I've known is just said one day he said, "Nah, fuck, this is bullshit."
Okay, you have not been listening to me because I never said it's an overnight process.
No. Wait. Let Harris finish. Hold on.
I know that, but then you have to acknowledge that. Okay, so people become okay, no, and that happened in my case as well. And for a very long time, I said, okay, I'm going to stay Muslim, but the Islam of Hadith and the Islam of the Sirah is all bullshit. The Quran was metaphorical. The mental gymnastics people employ.
But what Armin is saying, Harris, hold on, let me Armin, correct me if you're wrong, because I actually agree with Armin on this part, is that the reason that when I moved through my sort of midway reform style phase, the thing that influenced me to go that midway phase was not reform Muslims. It was actually atheists. People like Ibn Waraq. Yes. I read Ibn Waraq's book, Why I'm Not a Muslim, and I thought, oh, holy shit. Then I watered myself down and I became more of the reform thing. So even when we look at the reformers in Christianity, reform thinkers in Christianity, they weren't called reform thinkers. They were actually radical, sort of anti-theists almost. I mean, the Enlightenment thinkers, right? In a way, right? With a few exceptions here and there. But most of them, by and large, were very, very vocal and fierce critics, to the extent that some of them had to go into protection. And the reform is a retrospective designation that we put on them when we look back now. And they're the ones who actually brought people to the dilution. So I think that's what Armin is saying, that even though reform does happen and it is possible, it doesn't happen because of self-designated reformers. It happens because of radical atheists or ex-Muslims.
No, Ali, you summed it up better than I could. But the only thing I would add to that is that not only the ex-Muslims and the atheists and the critics of Islam are the people that are reforming Muslims, not Islam, because Islam will always be shitty. But not only it's them, I would add to that the so-called reformists are the people that are slowing the process down, because those are the people that are saying that are trying to reform Islam rather than Muslims, and those are the people that are trying to give the impression that there's something here valuable to keep. They are the people that are slowing down the process, the death of this barbaric ideology.
I don't know about that. Yeah,
I know about that. I know about that. I will defend that argument. But that would be.
I'm going to do what religious people do, and they bring in a very smart analogy, and people say, well, that had nothing to do with the exact thing, but I hope it does. They are slowing down the progress, but it's like the friction between the tire and the road. That the universe we occupy, we have people who are reluctant to let go of Islam altogether or the religious beliefs. But they still want to move forward a little bit. They do. So this car is still moving.
No, they're holding us back. No, that's a very good analogy. The friction is there. Go on. So the friction is there. So you want that friction to be gone altogether. I would agree with you. The reformer is someone. I would if I could have it my way, I would have no reform movement, but just from Islam to atheists. I would have it, but I know that's not going to happen. It's not going to be that way. A lot of people who communicate with me, they go, okay, all right, no, I'm a modern Muslim. But then it's a step. A lot of them come out of that too, and they say, well,
So what both of you are saying is compatible.
No,
both of you
it's not compatible, because I'm not hoping I'm not saying I wish the friction was not there, because the friction, I agree that whenever you're pushing against an ideology, it goes through this puppy face mode, like, hey, look, I'm cute, I'm not that bad, please don't kill me. But that's when you stab it. The thing is that I agree that this friction exists, and I agree that this friction is a natural thing that occurs when you're fighting against ideology, and it would be unreasonable to think that it wouldn't be there. All I'm saying is that you acknowledge the friction, but you push against that friction. Right?
Which we are.
Yeah, you push against it. So I see the reform movement as another idea that we push against, not endorse.
Okay. Okay, I'll just make the analogy a little bit more complicated. So we all want to move forward, right? So we realize there's a friction between the tires and the road where you cannot move forward, and this reformers are actually the friction. But we're still moving forward with a little bit of effort. But the alternative is that now we have a dead wall in front of us, which are the Islamists, who are like these people who chant "Hang Asia Bibi." So what would we rather have? We don't want to run into this wall and then we go, okay, well, these are the Islamists, and that's how it's just gonna be.
Of course I'd rather have the liberal Muslims compared to the radical ones. But what I'm saying, the reformist movement does not produce liberal Muslims. It doesn't. We produce the liberal Muslims. The reformist Muslims, the reformist movement is not even for the Muslim audience. It's for a non-Muslim audience. It's a PR move for Islam.
Okay, guys. Okay, I'm gonna mediate now, because now we're repeating ourselves.
Okay. Sorry.
So that's why I'm gonna kind of abort this conversation. But I just want to say,
I like to have these.
No, that was all very good.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think that what you guys are saying is completely incompatible from my point.
Don't do this, Ali. It's people.
Let me just say.
No. I think we disagree on something. That's okay.
You disagree. I'm not mediating.
Okay.
I'm not mediating. All I'm saying is that I think that Armin, when you say, and this is what I think too, I do think that it's a radical sort of atheist types who bring people to the reform room, and then when those people come to the reform room and they see people like Majid and so on, they're like, okay, we're not alone, and that helps ease their transition along. This is what I think.
No, okay, that's a great thing you said, because we brought them to that room, right? And now the reform movement wants to come and get all these great liberal Muslim.
They're not taking us away from them.
No,
they're just kind of They're like, hey, listen, you're not alone.
Let me finish. No. What the reform movement does is gives credit to Islam for these liberal Muslims, and I say these liberal Muslims are liberal because they're ignoring Islam. Don't give credit to Islam. Islam is not, because all these good Muslims. What the reform movement does is just look. Hey, look, Islam can be good. Like, no, Islam cannot be good. These Muslims are good because they're less Muslim than before. Okay.
I think Armin has a strategical planning problem with this whole reform movement. I would say I agree with him, and I said at the start of the conversation, I could not be someone like Majid Nawaz. I could not be a reformer, because to me it's just bullshit, right? So I don't want to play mental gymnastics with myself or lead my audiences astray and paint them the rosy picture. But I agree with you. I mean, I don't want to have it, but I recognize that there are people who are susceptible to it. There would always be an audience for people like Majid who would say, yeah, maybe there is room. And religions have always tried to reform. And one thing I'll tell you that, or you would know that too, like, I mean, the society just never, ever in the history of humanity has ever stayed static. So it would always keep changing bit by bit, and humanity keeps evolving. And even though certain strong ideologies like Islam that actually claim to be eternal for all times and all mankind, even they can't just stay where they were 1400 years ago. So it's natural for it to move. I mean, Islam has reformed in a way where all Muslims have reformed, as you like to say, that, the Muslims reform, but Islam doesn't. Of course, doctrines don't evolve. It's the people who impose those doctrines, they evolve. I mean, the Nazi of today, if Hitler Nazism had continued, that Nazism would have been somewhat evolved version of Hitler's Nazism. So doctrines evolved, and doctrines are what their followers actually believe and practice. So I agree with you. I mean, it's a bullshit movement, but I know that it's going to stay there until the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a bullshit movement, and it will stay with us. But Sang is saying, stop, Armin. I think Sang is tired of me defending. But Mars is. I'm just going to read Mars, and because Mars is agreeing with me. But after that, I'll stop. Mars is saying, I appreciate reformers, but I have to agree with Armin. The leftovers of religion can wreak havoc with the efforts of modernity. Thank you, Mars.
Okay.
All right.
That's good. All right. So let's end there. Harris, okay, obviously this was like clearly fascinating. It was amazing.
Yeah,
I just want to say we're out of time, but I would love to have you on back. I think we should do a regular thing with you guys. We've had Abdullah Gondal on twice too, and it'd be kind of cool to continue this conversation. Other parts of it apart from the reform thing, because I think we settled that. Anyway.
we should have like this ex-Muslim YouTuber or leader or activist get together where we have like all of us in one place in one city at an event.
Yeah, we should do that.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
Look, I mean, as you said it earlier, like, I mean, atheists. I as much as I hate the identity politics and these causes, but atheists are actually overly careless people, and we don't have a church to go to, we don't have hymns to sing, and the closest thing that can bring us together is science, and even scientists are divided on so many things as well. So on social aspects. Especially so, I mean, look, it was wonderful to be, and like so many of my friends and heroes have been on your podcast, and now now I can say that I've walked with the giants. So no, thanks for having me.
I was well, I've always thought of recently, like after after reading this book, I know that you're definitely going to be a giant. I mean, you already are. I mean, it's such a beautifully written and easy read, especially for I think a lot of young Muslims out there who'll be in doubt. I think they'll relate to it a lot.
On that note, I want to say actually I've already got someone who's actually very keen in translating that in Urdu, because Pakistanis they don't have access, and I think we're just it's half translated already in Urdu, and I think we're just gonna put the PDFs out. I just don't care. No point in making any money out of it. Just put it out there and the ideas, and
that's one great advantage of an Armin he's gonna smile when I say this, as he'll be like, I was right. But that's one huge advantage of independent publishing. Like there's so many people who've been wanting to translate it, but like going through the publisher with the rights and everything, because I had my book with an actual like old school style, it has been such a limitation, in terms of getting translations out there. So I'm really, when I read your book, I was like, okay, this is great. Like, it's a good thing there aren't any restrictions, and I think that the message. I mean, I was reading your book and I was thinking, I was like, this is a lot of the stuff that I would have written as well. So I think it's fantastic. I'm really
Sang
glad
in
it's
the
out
live
there.
chat is asking, what's the release date for your book?
Well, it should be end of probably early next month. It should be just before Christmas, probably on my birthday. I mean, I just realized actually you and I have the same birthday, same day, same year.
No fucking way.
So two devils were born that day. One in Iraq,
really?
not so far away.
Christmas 83?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
You little kids. That's so cute. Anyway,
so
where can people find you?
Well, so people can find me on my Facebook profile, which has been shut down a few times. I've just rebuilt it again. But my page is more steady, which is ex-Muslim Atheist. And you can see my photo. I don't mainly run it. I've got a couple of more administrators on it, so they actually keep putting up the content, which is in line with my views. Very seldom I disagree with anything, but even if it is, just go with it. But if you want to follow me personally, obviously my Twitter, letter X Muslim Atheist, and you can search for Harris Sultan in Facebook, and you'll see my photo there. So you can follow me there. You can also please subscribe to my YouTube videos. And my YouTube channel, again, you can just search Harris Sultan on YouTube. You can find a lot of my content, a lot of my videos, and I do these podcasts with other people as well. I've done some debates as well, so it's every bit helps. And obviously, as I said, at this point, I'm just trying to raise funds for Spartacus. If you guys can jump on board and please share the message, and it's only a 2-minute video on Twitter. So all the listeners,
and we've got the for whoever's listening to this right now, the link is in the description.
Yeah.
For that, and by the time that this podcast comes out, which is now for you, whoever is listening, I think that hopefully the GoFundMe page will be up and running.
Yeah. So yeah, it should be GoFundMe as well. Yeah.
By the way, I want to thank one of our patrons, Sang, in the live chat, because he also was acting like a moderator here. He was like telling me to stop when I was going too far, and he told me to let you finish your story. So thank you, Sang, for for taking that role. It was helpful, actually. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. This was a blast, and not the Allahu Akbar kind. Just
we don't want that.
I just think I don't want to be too poetic. Just be a little literal. Armin gets it. But anyway, okay. So thank you, everybody.
And thank you to all our patrons, the ones in the live chat right now. Mars, Sang, who else? James. If you're one of our patrons, please. These are the live version of this is only available to our patrons. So please, it really helps when you guys come in the live chat. It makes the experience a lot more pleasant when I read your comments and stuff. So join us in the live discussions when you're available.
Mm-hmm. And if you're not a patron, you just go to secularjihadist.com. If you like what you hear, if you think that these conversations are of value to you, then please, sign up and become a patron at patreon.com/SJME. And when we get to 500 patrons, we're going to start translating a lot of these podcasts.
Yes.
And including episodes with Sam Harris, Steven Pinker, Mariam Namazi, Sarah Haider, all of these.
Well, we're gonna start. We're first going to translate the episodes that we covered the basics on the Quran and Muhammad, because I think those are for
with Abdullah Gondal.
With Abdullah Gondal, yeah. So once we reach 500 patrons, we're going to start translating to Urdu, Arabic, Persian, and other languages.
Malay, Farsi, everything. Yeah. So help us with that. Now, if you can't support us, we can't be a patron. That is perfectly fine. We still want you to enjoy the content. Leave us a review on iTunes or share the podcast on on your social media, wherever.
Mars Chang in the live chat is saying, Harris, looking forward to your book.
Yeah, I think a lot of other people will be. Yeah. And I'm certainly, and I am going to get that forward to you very soon. Okay. It's just there's a lot going on, the time zone differences, and you know how it is.
All right.
But it will be. I'm almost done with it. Okay.
That's cool.
So, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.